Good evening and welcome. Two more monuments marking the 1989 Tiananmen Square crackdown have been removed from the Chinese University and Lingnan University campuses.
This came a day after the University of Hong Kong dismantled an iconic statue commemorating the victims of the crackdown. Jackie Lin has more on the university's explanation and student reaction.
This entrance to the Chinese University of Hong Kong, where the goddess of democracy once stood, felt all the more empty after the statue was taken down this morning. The monument made its first appearance in Hong Kong back in 2010, when the now disbanded organizer of the annual June 4th Vigil exhibited it at Times Square Causeway Bay. It was then taken to that year's June 4th Vigil before being erected at the university, where it stood for 11 years since. At the time, the school management rejected applications to display it based on the principle of political neutrality. Today, CUHK stresses it has never authorized the installation, and no organization has claimed responsibility for the statue's maintenance and management. Some CU students and alumni were outraged by the move, including Shortens District Councillor Felix Chow, who's currently a graduate student at the university.
I find this event very shocking because, as we all know, the status of democracy is a very important symbol for the university inclusiveness and also the integrity.
At Lingnan University, similar fate befell a Tiananmen monument and the Goddess of Democracy painting. The school's ruling body cited the need to protect the overall interest of the university community over potential legal and safety risks. A student union representative slammed the university's thief-like erasure of memorials as shameful. Arriving in Hong Kong the same year, both the wall relief at Lingnan University and the Goddess of Democracy at the Chinese University were sculpted by Chinese-born New Zealand artist Chen Wei-ming. Jackie Lin, TVB News.
Police have arrested 3 staff members of the Hong Kong Society for the Protection of Children on suspicion of child abuse.
The organization has fired 1 staff member and suspended 2 others from their duties. Kena Chu reports.
To lead and excel in keeping children healthy, happy, and safe. That's the mission of the Hong Kong Society for the Protection of Children. But behind those caged windows, it's a different story. According to the police, at least 2 staff members of the organization had allegedly slapped the faces and hit the heads of the children under their watch. The assailants also allegedly pulled the children's hair and threw them onto the ground. The youngest of the victims were only 2 years old, with the oldest just 3.5 years old. Allegations of child abuse surfaced Wednesday after witnesses reported what happened on the playground of the children's home. In a statement responding to the incident, the Society for the Protection of Children expressed its zero-tolerance attitude towards what transpired. Following an investigation, it also confirmed that one of its workers employed under its subsidiary, Children's Residential Home in Mongkok, had indeed inflicted corporal punishment upon children aged only 2 to 3. Admitting what happened was harmful and inappropriate, the society vowed to cooperate with the police's probe into the case. The children's home has so far terminated 1 employee and temporarily suspended the other 2 from their duties. 7 children sustaining swells and bruises are now hospitalized. With the possibility of there being more victims, authorities are going through surveillance camera footage in their search for others subject to abuse. Kena Chu, TVB News.
The government announced that people who previously received 2 COVID-19 vaccine doses 6 months ago will be eligible to take a 3rd jab from January 1st.
Meanwhile, most community vaccination centers will extend their opening hours next year. Kayla Bloom has details.
Currently, only Sinovac recipients or specific priority groups are eligible to take a 3rd dose of a COVID-19 vaccine. But the government has decided to offer the option of a 3rd shot to all those who have already taken a vaccine starting next year, regardless of which vaccine they received 6 months ago. Authorities will also give people who have recovered from the virus the option to take a 2nd jab. Children aged 12 to 17 who have taken only 1 BioNTech jab can also get a 2nd dose 12 weeks after taking the 1st. Despite the increasing likelihood of a higher demand for COVID jabs in the future, Dr. Aris Leung, who is in charge of a community vaccination center, said it is not necessary for people to worry about the city's vaccine supply.
I do not think that it will overwhelm our supply or our capacity. At the present moment, we are only using about 20% of our capacity. According to our estimation and also according to the suggestions of the scientific committees, they recommend that citizens have the third injection at 6 months after the second injection. Now, if we project like that, we anticipate more people to come after the Chinese New Year. That means in the next month or so, we have time to train ourselves to develop alternative models of delivery of the vaccines.
Aside from offering a third jab to everyone, the government is extending the opening hours of 9 community vaccination centers from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. starting January 1st. The government is also opening 2 new vaccination centers, which will be located at Alice Ho Miu Ling Nathasol Hospital in Tai Po and Yan Chai Hospital in Geunhye. The 2 new centers, which will open their doors next Thursday, will offer a walk-in service offering the BioNTech jab. Caleb Leung, TVB News.
The city reported 5 new COVID-19 cases today. Among the patients is a 64-year-old toilet cleaner at the airport. He was presumptively diagnosed yesterday and is believed to be carrying the Omicron variant of the coronavirus. The other 4 newly reported cases were all imported. The cleaner lives in Geunhye House of Geunhye Court in Tuen Mun. Residents of the building were subject to compulsory testing overnight. Some 1,200 people were tested and no one returned a positive result. The airport toilet where the patient worked was used by arrivals who had tested preliminary positive for COVID-19. 26 environmental samples taken from his workplace all tested negative.
The mainland reported 55 new local COVID-19 cases, with 49 cases reported in Xi'an, the capital Shanxi province. The authorities are holding 26 Xi'an government officials responsible for the latest COVID-19 surge. There have reportedly been problems, including insufficient attention to safety standards, failure to implement anti-epidemic measures, and poor management during the outbreak. As of Thursday, Xi'an had reported 255 local COVID-19 cases since the latest spike was triggered by imported infections on December 9th.
The Australian government is shortening the wait for people to get a COVID-19 booster shot after a record number of infections fueled by the Omicron variant. From January 4th, booster shots will be offered to everyone aged over 18 who had their second jab 4 months earlier. That wait will be shortened to 3 months beginning January 31st. The country reported more than 7,700 new cases today. Testing centers have been swamped by people seeking a test before traveling for Christmas gatherings. People are now being advised to seek tests only if they're showing symptoms or had close contact with existing cases.
The U.S. Food and Drug Administration has authorized a second pill for use against COVID-19. The announcement on Merck's COVID pill comes a day after the FDA cleared a competing drug from Pfizer. It provides another easy-to-use medication to battle the rising tide of Omicron infections. But even as cases increase across the country, Americans are hitting the skies this holiday season. While travel restrictions in some places have forced many to cancel their plans, some governments have been reluctant to order more lockdowns. That leaves decisions about who to see and where to go in the hands of individuals. Health officials warn people not to let down their guard.
In the UK, the British government reiterated that it won't enforce further COVID restrictions until after Christmas.
Meanwhile, revelers on the European mainland are attempting to make the most of the holiday season despite the looming threat posed by the Omicron variant. Daniel Rell tells us more.
The British government said it won't implement any new coronavirus restrictions until after Christmas. Westminster also heralded what it called encouraging early studies on the severity of the Omicron variant. The UK's Public Health Agency outlined preliminary data suggesting people infected with the Omicron variant are between 50% and 70% less likely to need hospitalisation than those who contracted the Delta strain. Still, the body warned the findings are preliminary and highly uncertain. Scientists caution that Omicron appears to spread faster than Delta and to be more adept at evading vaccines. In Germany, Berliners flocked to the famous Kurfürstendamm street for a spot of last-minute Christmas shopping. Large queues could be seen outside of shops. Health pass codes were needed in order to enter the stores. The German government has called on residents of the country to limit social contact during the holidays. It has issued a fresh vaccination drive ahead of the introduction of new curbs on public life after Christmas. In Spain, thousands headed to Madrid's Atocha train station after deciding to travel to see their families, despite a domestic surge in Omicron cases. COVID infection rates in Spain are currently more than twice that accumulated in the same period last year. Prime Minister Pedro Sanchez convened a special cabinet meeting to pass a law by decree that makes it mandatory to wear masks outdoors to help clamp down on the infection spike. Elsewhere, tourists are returning to the Lapland region of Finland, a traditional Christmas holiday hotspot. That's after last year's pandemic situation decimated the plans of many to take a trip to the iconic festive location. However, this time round, hugs with Santa will be off limits. Visitors to the Santa Claus Village amusement park in Rovaniemi will be separated from Father Christmas by a cookie-shaped plexiglass screen. Taking some time out from drafting the final versions of his naughty and nice lists, Santa urged people to make the most of the holidays.
I hope people are spending time together, not just in the same house, but they should do something together. I've heard very worrying news about children's well-being and coping around the world. So please be together, do something together, and enjoy, and let's make this very happy Christmas.
Daniel Rell, TVB News.
Russian President Vladimir Putin says his country wants to avoid conflict with Ukraine and the West. But he said he needs an immediate response from the United States and its allies to its demands for security guarantees.
The White House quickly pushed back against criticism leveled by Putin that the U.S. and its allies are the aggressors. Speaking during a marathon annual news conference, Putin said talks with the U.S. are set to start in Geneva next month. But in occasionally heated remarks, he warned Moscow expects quick results. Putin said Russia has clearly and precisely indicated that further NATO expansion eastward is unacceptable. Last week, Moscow submitted draft security documents demanding that NATO deny membership to Ukraine and other former Soviet republics. Russia also wants a rollback of the alliance's military deployments in Central and Eastern Europe. Russia has denied plans to launch an attack, but has described a NATO expansion and weapons deployment in Ukraine as a red line. A political analyst says Putin's tone was expectedly tough.
He flatly rejected any criticism and repeated again and again that Russia was duped, that the West promises that NATO would not expand eastward were not fulfilled.
A different tone and a different take from the White House.
The only aggression we're seeing at the border of Russia and Ukraine is the military buildup by the Russians and the bellicose rhetoric from the leader of Russia. I would just note is that NATO is a defensive alliance. It's not an aggressive alliance. There is no evidence to the contrary, to suggest anything to the contrary.
The White House added that President Joe Biden has yet to agree to a time and place for talks with Putin. The U.S. and NATO have said they will discuss the package with Russia early next year, aware that outright rejection could further inflame the crisis over Ukraine. But they insist they won't give Russia the kind of guarantee on Ukraine that Putin wants. The U.S., the European Union, and the Group of Seven have all warned Putin he will face massive consequences, including tough economic sanctions in the event of any new Russian aggression. Welcome back to TVB News. South Korean President Moon Jae-in is pardoning former president and chief political rival Park Geun-hye.
Park is serving a 20-year prison term after being convicted of bribery and other crimes. Alan Geunhye reports.
South Korean Justice Minister Park Byum-kai made the announcement, saying the pardon is meant to overcome past divisions and promote national unity in the face of difficulties brought on by the pandemic. The fact that her health had deteriorated after nearly 5 years in prison was also taken into account. The 69-year-old Park became South Korea's first female president in late 2012. The daughter of slain dictator Park Geunhye, she was once the darling of conservatives. But she became embroiled in a massive corruption scandal and was impeached in late 2016 and arrested the following year. Among the charges she faced was collusion with her longtime confidant, Choi Sun-sil, to take millions of dollars in bribes from some of the country's largest businesses, including Samsung. The case sparked months of massive protests. Park described herself as a victim of political revenge. In January, South Korea's Supreme Court upheld her 20-year prison term. She was also separately convicted of meddling in her party's nominations ahead of parliamentary elections in 2016. She could have served a combined 22 years in jail. Park is among more than 3,000 people who are to be pardoned and released on December 31st. Another former president, Lee Myung-bak, also imprisoned on corruption charges, was not included in the pardon list. President Moon Jae-in's single 5-year term ends in May after a March election. It's unclear how Park's pardon might affect voter sentiment. It could cause a backlash from liberals, but some observers say it may also rekindle a division in the conservative opposition camp. Alan Geunhye, TVB News.
In the United States, family and supporters of Daunte Wright are relieved after a Minnesota jury found former police officer Kimberly Potter guilty of manslaughter. Potter shot Wright in the chest during a traffic stop in a Minneapolis suburb in April. She claimed she mistakenly fired her handgun instead of her taser. It happened just a few miles north of where Derek Chauvin, a former Minneapolis police officer, was at the same time standing trial for killing George Floyd, another black man. A 12-member jury declared the 49-year-old guilty of first-degree and second-degree manslaughter in the death of the 20-year-old black man. The shooting sparked several intense demonstrations. Wright's family said the guilty verdict had been overwhelming.
We've been fighting for a long time. It's been a long 9 months. Yes. We can't speak too much about everything, but we're happy with the verdict. We're happy with the guilty.
Oh my gosh. The moment that we heard guilty on the manslaughter 1, emotions, every single emotion that you could imagine just running through your body at that moment.
It's Christmas Eve today, and some new attractions are available for the public to celebrate the festivities. This as the new water sports and recreational precinct at the Geunhye waterfront officially opened today. Its pedal-driven boat rental service has already been fully booked for December. Also fully booked are many restaurants here in Lang Kwai Fong over the Christmas holidays. A manager of a Category D restaurant says, as all their workers have been fully jabbed, they can offer the option of semi-buffets for Christmas feasts. Able to open till 2 a.m., it also entails longer hours to earn more bucks over the holiday season. Thanks for joining us. I brought some Christmas cheer just for the end.
I love what you've done with your hair.
Thank you. Merry Christmas, everyone.
Merry Christmas. Good night.
Good night.